Hey, it's Doug Huntington here from Niche Site Project. You're here for the webinar of the origin of Niche Site Project. I'm going to talk about how I got started online, and hopefully we got a couple people on. We do. Welcome. Let me know where you're from. I see there's Mary, Jeremy, Kirthi, Nick. We got John, Bernard, Nate, Rick, Del, Adam, and Jesus. Welcome. Thanks for joining up. And I do have to give a shout out to Sean, who shared the webinar link. So Sean, thanks a lot for doing that. I appreciate it. This webinar, I was doing frequent webinars, but I took a little break after I launched and I guess started the enrollment period for July for 5-figure niche sites. So I was kind of taking a break for a little bit because I was working with students a lot in the ramp up period, the onboarding period. And by the way, let me know in the chat. I think probably you would have let me know if you can't hear me at all, but let me know if you can hear me. Say hello, let me know where you're from in the chat as well, and hopefully more people will be rolling on here real soon. So anyway, I was finishing up some work yesterday. I hopped over to Facebook just to say hello in one of the groups, and then I saw someone was asking about my next webinar, and I thought, hey, I should schedule one. Here's one I've been thinking about for a little while. I presented something similar a while back, but just wanted to talk about it again. So John from California, what's up? Good to have you on, John. And that's a good sign. That means people can hear me. And I'll just say, let me know where you're from. Rick from Florida. And Kirthi from, oh, Kirthi, you're dropping a link in there. That's a that's a low competency trigger, I'm afraid. Why are you dropping your link in the chat? All right, excellent. Adam, what's up from the UK? And excellent, John, thanks for letting me know. So yeah, today is the origin story for Niche Site Project. It's interesting, and I'll get into some of the background stuff. And I'm curious, is anyone here on this webinar for the first time? And have you attended any of these others? Mary from Ireland, awesome, cool. And I'll mention I was doing a podcast interview a little bit earlier, and it kept cutting off. So it was my friend Richard, and he's in the UK, kept cutting off like every 5 minutes. It was terrible. I don't know why. And before that, I was talking to my friend Lewis, talking about one of our sites, and it was fine the whole time. So with any luck, I hope that this will work. It seems like things are okay. I don't have like apps running, and I did a speed test. I have like 70 up and 70 down. So I think we should be all right. Okay, cool. So Mary from Ireland, hello. Thanks again, Sean, for sharing. And in the future, by the way, I'll do this for folks. So if you share, specifically like on Facebook, that's a really good place to share stuff. If you share like the webinars that I'm doing, I'll give you a shout out, say hello to you in the webinar. So I threw it together yesterday, and then I thought, hey, you know what? I need more people in these webinars. So, okay. Del from Overland Park. I worked in Overland Park for a few weeks back in the day at the Sprint campus. I really liked Overland Park, by the way. It was like, it reminded me of like Alpharetta, Georgia, where I worked, except without as many trees, but there were a lot of parks and stuff. I ran around. There was a big mall. I'm sure that was like 10 years ago, so I'm sure it looks a little different now, but I like Overland Park. And Rick's on for the first time. Welcome, Rick. Thanks for joining. And Jesus is also on for the first time. very cool. So we have like a small crowd today since I sent it out sort of last minute. And, you know, sometimes there's not that many people on these. So it'll be an intimate presentation here. And I will get into it right now. How I started Niche Site Project, which is my internet marketing blog. And basically, I'm just going to tell you about it. I already confirmed the sound check, which is a good thing. As I mentioned, I'm Doug Huntington. I'm the founder of Niche Site Project. That's me and my late dog there at the Beartooth Pass up in Wyoming, or down in Wyoming from here. I'm actually going there with my wife in a couple weeks. We're going to stay down in the valley below it on the way to Yellowstone. So that'll be fun. It's a very cool drive. I've been featured or quoted on a bunch of sites, some of which you probably recognize. And I think I go into it a little deeper here on some of the places I've been featured. So I'm curious, does anyone have an internet marketing blog currently? Or perhaps you're thinking of starting one sometime in the future? Just let me know in the chat. So here's my internet marketing timeline, and it's really around like niche sites. And about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, I found the Smart Passive Income podcast and sort of started my journey. But before that, I had no idea about any kind of, online income or internet marketing. It sounded like a total scam, and I didn't know anything about it. After some time, I actually got some pretty good success in just a few months, really. But as you can see, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. There have been ups and downs, and I think that's how entrepreneurship goes. I'll mention that the Q&A is at the end. You can ask questions throughout, but I'll try and stick with my train of thoughts as I'm speaking and try not to get too distracted. Sometimes I can't help myself though, and I'll look at the chat and answer right away. But Q&A in general is at the end. You can mark the questions as questions in the little chat box. So feel free to do that. It definitely makes it easier to sort through. And next, we'll get into it. So this is the origin story of Niche Site Project. And one of the things that I did when I launched the site was to network with people. I realized that I had the opportunity to try to sort of prepare for the launch. And, one of the things that I did to actually launch the site was to launch off someone else's platform, which is probably, it seems like the best way to do it if you have the opportunity to, which it isn't always easy to create that opportunity. So just overall, just remember throughout, and even, I hope that it comes across that I'm generally nice, but I think that kind of goes across the board. It makes everything go a little bit easier in general, in life, in internet marketing, and if you're running a blog. So, and these are a couple of the things, I guess, the highlights. I'm sorry I didn't prep this exactly with an additional slide, but a couple things to remember. So be nice, and then do what you say you will do. So if you, again, just in life in general, you can say you're going to do a lot of stuff, and if you just do those things, you usually come out pretty good. And when you're running a blog, if you say, hey, I'm going to publish something once a week for 6 months, if you just do that, you'll learn a lot along the way. And I'll tell you right now, there's probably going to be some periods where you think, I'm not going to have time, or that wasn't my best work, or I shouldn't put it out today. But if you go through it and actually do what you say you're going to do, whatever commitment that is, you'll usually come out a little bit ahead. You'll learn stuff along the way. Even when you publish that stuff that isn't as great, you'll learn a lot from it. Now, this is the sort of thing that got me rolling with internet marketing. So two things happened, and they sort of happened for me at the same time. The Smart Passive Income podcast. So I found it one morning. I was out walking Brody back in Dunwoody, Georgia, where I used to live. And I was listening to a lot of beer brewing blogs at the time. I'm a home brewer. I'm a certified beer judge with the BJCP. And I was really listening to a lot of beer podcasts, but I got burned out. I mean, at that point in time, I was listening to, probably a couple hours of podcasts about beer brewing per day. And I had been for about 6 or 7 years before that. So just think about that for a second. I've been listening to so much stuff on beer brewing, and frankly, I was just burned out. I was doing a lot of beer judging at the time, which is going down a whole other, obsession of mine aside from internet marketing. So I simply was browsing different podcasts to listen to. I got over to the business section and saw Pat Flynn's podcast Art, and I was like, oh, I'll check that out. Sounds interesting. And I dove in. I listened to probably, a few episodes a day. I would listen to it at 1.5 speed. So I would listen to them faster, and I would listen to a few a day. So it was pretty crazy how many I made it through. And at some point, I think around episode 50 or 60, Spencer Hawes from Niche Pursuits was on the podcast talking about niche sites. And specifically, he was talking about Niche Site Project 1, which I'll mention in a second. But that sort of got me really interested in the Amazon affiliate area of affiliate marketing. Now, around the same time, Pat Flynn was launching Niche Site Duel 2, or it wasn't 2.0, it was just Niche Site Duel 2, I guess. And that's one of the reasons he had Spencer on, was to talk about niche sites and, launching a new niche site. Now, as I listened to all the historical episodes of Smart Passive Income, I know that Niche Site Duel 1, which was just called Niche Site Duel for Pat Flynn back in the day, was a great thing for him to expand his audience. So I think that's why he was doing Niche Site Duel 2. In fact, he did this a little different. He opened it up to, the community. So he launched this site, Niche Site Duel 2.0. And, I created my site, my first site, because, other people were doing it in the community. And I was also tracking along with Spencer Hawes, a niche site project that he was running. I, of course, borrowed the name from him, but, he didn't necessarily make up that name. The domain, incidentally, was owned way back in the day by Chris Ducker. So if you listen to Smart Passive Income, you know Chris Ducker from a few of the podcast episodes. So anyway, I was a member in Niche Site Duel. I formed a small mastermind group with people there. And I remember telling my wife after the first session that the first mastermind session, I was like, oh, there's this guy. He's pretty advanced. He's making, he's been doing this for a couple years. He's making about $3 a day from an AdSense site. And I was blown away. I thought that was amazing. And it was real. I talked to this guy who was actually making about $100 a month from an AdSense site, and he was, going to launch some more sites. Of course, at that point in time, I just launched one site. It was terrible. I made about 45 cents. The keyword research was bad, and it was just kind of a wreck. So as we go through here, we see Niche Pursuits launched Niche Site Project 1. So that was the best survival knife guide back in the day. If people, by the way, does anyone remember this project from Niche Pursuits? or did anyone follow this? Just let me know in the chat there. It's good to have just a little motion in the chat just to make sure that you can hear me. I once did a webinar presentation for about 45 minutes and no one could hear me. So that was a lesson learned. So Mary says, yes, you did what I learned from Spencer in his case, and just having like a small mastermind group around me. I launched a site in July. Actually, it was almost 4 years ago exactly. It was like July 14th is when I, let's see. Okay, so it looks like some people say they can't hear me, but some other people say that I'm back now. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we're still good. Okay, cool. Terry, Rick, Del, John, thanks for letting me know. Should be good now. Okay. So basically, I was able to launch a site in July. By August, I made 21 bucks, which was cool. September, 500, and you can see it ramped up for December when I made like $6,287, which blew my mind. I mean, that's, you know, full-time income, basically. I mean, that is great. And I was thinking, hey, I'm going to quit my job. But unfortunately, I got my site penalized at the time. And you'll remember from the graph, the roller coaster that I showed earlier, my site got penalized shortly after that. And unfortunately, like Spencer and Pat Flynn were all advocating gray hat techniques at the time. So it was like wide stream. I mean, you may be surprised if you're just getting into internet marketing now, like knowing what Pat Flynn advocates now versus like what he was doing before. I mean, he was basically saying, you know, go to Fiverr, you could buy link wheels and link pyramids, and, you know, this is how I ranked my site #1, and so on and so forth. So it was a different time back then. It was 4 years ago, and things changed fast in internet marketing. But basically, the seed was planted then, and I had like great ideas about, you know, starting an internet marketing platform myself. I looked up to Pat and Spencer and several other people quite a bit. And I thought, hey, they seem like, you know, regular guys, and it looks like it's something that I can do. I'm interested in that. And, you know, in this period where I was making some money, I thought, hey, like that's honestly, now that I have more data, I mean, to make $500 or $1,000 a month on a consistent basis, that's, I'm just making up the stats, but that's like the top 1%. I mean, so many people think about starting a site. They think about making money online, creating some source of, you know, slightly passive income where you can set it up and just do maintenance. I mean, not many people actually take the steps to create a site, and then even fewer actually make money. And I was doing it. I thought, hey, people would want to hear what I have to say. The seed was planted, of course. Why start a blog? You know, that's when I talk to my wife a lot about all sorts of things, but, you know, I talk to her about the business stuff, even though she's not as interested as, you know, other people may be, but she listens and she gives good advice. But like, why start a blog? So there's a couple reasons. 3 that I've listed here. Share knowledge. Of course, you know, I'm doing a lot of that now. These webinars, just consistently blogging. The other part is accountability, right? So not only am I saying I'm going to do something, but there's many people who are counting on me to actually do it. So if I say, hey, I'm going to do a webinar every week for, you know, 10 weeks out of the quarter, well, then I need to show up. I mean, other people are counting on me, and there's accountability attached to it. With a blog, if you're running, say, a case study or something like that, there's a huge amount of accountability, especially if you make some, you know, big goals or big claims associated with it. For example, Project Go White Hat. I mean, that was a 12-part blog series that people were, very eager to learn more about. And not only that, I mean, I had to actually deliver. So I couldn't just show up. I also had to deliver and then tell people about what I've done. Third is to sell something. I mean, if you are thinking about a blog, if you look at any blog out there, there's usually some financial component to it. I mean, there are some blogs which are purely a journal, purely for just sharing, but most have some kind of a financial component or some sort of, it's a piece of the puzzle for some larger business. So some blogs may have just tons of information, but they have a product that they sell at the end of the day. There are a few exceptions, but not many. So there are tons of blogs out there, and there are tons of internet marketing blogs. So I, approached my wife with the idea of starting a blog and, hey, do you think it's a good idea? Do you have any ideas about what I can do? I thought, hey, I'll just document the process. I mean, that's what Pat Flynn says he does. He just documents as he's going along and shares the tools he uses. And, when you look at his actual, Pat Flynn launched off of niche sites more or less. He created basically a niche site around the lead exam, which he was an expert in. So there's, that was a bit of a passion project for him and a study tool for himself. And from there, he launched just internet marketing, niche sites, basically. So he did that a few times. And to my knowledge, right, those niche sites weren't crazy huge successes, but he shared it in a very compelling manner, and he's super authentic. People like him. So at the time, that was a differentiator, just to be full disclosure, sharing what you're doing and that sort of thing. Now, for me, I struggled. I wasn't sure about what my differentiator should be or could be. I just thought, hey, I'm going to share it. People will care what I have to say, even though, ignoring the fact that I'm not a great writer. I was even worse back then, but, I have an engineering degree, and basically I did technical business writing type stuff, and, no actual writing and no really, no story background, no understanding of what people would actually want to read. And I didn't read much myself. So I was kind of struggling to come up with something, and then it hit me. Hey, I'm a project manager. There's a ton of disorganization with, what is out there right now. Even though, Spencer was publishing a case study, a very detailed case study, a lot of the posts were thousands of words. One thing that was happening, I'll give a specific example. He would do something and he would publish the information, and then a few weeks later, he would figure out that, oh, that was actually a bad move. Here's how we correct it. So there's a flaw in publishing a case study as you go. You'll notice, and I'll give a specific example that Spencer did, and then I'll tell you that when I published the Project Go White Hat, a 12-part series that I started publishing in December and finished publishing about a month ago. So over 6 months, I published 12 posts on it. I didn't write and publish the first post until I was 60 to 70 days into the project. So I knew the shit worked on there. I knew what I was doing was working or not working, and I had already adjusted and solved the problem if it wasn't working. So everything was delayed for the most part, especially on the early side. So I knew what I was writing, and I knew the next 2 to 3 parts before I published any given part. So I haven't mentioned that before, but that's a good tip. if you're publishing a case study, you probably want to finish the case study and then publish it, or at least get pretty far down the line. So the example from Spencer's, and again, I'm mentioning the project management angle, like I was able to come in and organize, and I still believe there's like, even if you go to other courses, aside from my own, it's still organized poorly because they don't have a project management background. I won't mention the course, but a recent student in 5-Figure Niche Site was telling me that they were in another course, they paid the money, but it just seemed like there's tons of value, there's tons of information within that other course, but it's not organized. So if you just show up, there's like, 30 modules in there, 30 things you can do, and you don't know where to start. There's no like blueprint. They say the whole thing is a blueprint, but if you just start, you can't do everything at once. So the example from Spencer's is, this is Niche Site Project 1 from a while back. So he published a big table, right? A big table that compared the different products. He placed it like an image and an affiliate link for each one of the items. And it was like, I don't know, I'm just going to guess, it was like 30 different items in the table. So it was a good piece of content informationally, but you can imagine what happens, right? So you put in 30 products with a couple affiliate links for each one of those in this table. All of a sudden you've added a very high ratio of affiliate links outbound in that table versus the number of words you've added. So for Google, they see this is sort of just an affiliate site, and they have like a huge number of affiliate links. The rankings went down on that page, and it took a couple weeks, or at least a week, for Spencer to figure out what went wrong, make changes, and improve. The flaw, though, is people were following along specifically with the case study and doing the same thing on their own site. So they had the same issue, which is not a great thing, right? So you publish something that is unproven, and a bunch of other people do it. So that's why I waited on my case studies. And, back in the day, I did the same thing, trying to get out content faster, but it turns out you can do a better job if you know the story that's happening, and then you can publish it based on what you know and what you've tested after you get results. It's slightly irresponsible to publish these things live. So anyway, I went on a bit of a tangent, but basically I'm a PMP, right? Project management professional. There are a lot of PMPs out in the world, but there's not many in internet marketing, and it's a hard test. I think I'm trying to remember. I think it's like 200 questions, multiple choice. And you may be thinking, hey, multiple choice isn't that hard, but these are the kind of questions where it's like, A through E, and like D and E answers are all of the above, or A and B but not C kind of answers. So they make it pretty hard. It's over the course of 2 hours, and you also have to have years of project management experience where you submit the fact that you've worked on projects, implemented projects, and it can be audited. So if I recall, you have to have like 4,500 hours of project management experience. The point is, I've spent some time working on projects. So like I said, I'm sort of combining the ideas. So I realized there was a gap. There's still a gap. Project managers get paid pretty well. So most of the time, project managers are going to stick with their corporate jobs because it's a safer route, and most people get paid well, so they're not going to leave, even though they're generally overworked like a lot of other corporate jobs. So anyway, I saw this gap, and I thought, hey, I'm going to fill this space here in this Venn diagram where I can, I know about niche sites, and I'm a good project manager. And you know what? I didn't even have to be great at either one of them, although I think, you develop skills as you just spend more time working on it. So by the time I was working on niche sites, I was a very competent project manager. At the time, I had, a team of 15 project managers, and I was sort of I was a manager. I was a consulting manager. So I had several people working for me, and, not only was I competent, but I was able to lead other people successfully. And then as far as niche sites, I had like enough core information to where I could implement it and tell other people how to do it. So I pitched Spencer at Niche Pursuits. He was asking for success stories, and I thought, hey, well, this is perfect. I followed his lead in Niche Site Project 1, and I'm making money, and I'm doing it, fairly quickly, within a few months. So he was like, cool, sounds like a good story. And, I had a project management angle that I was, pitching, because it is unique. So I was featured twice, once in November in 2013, and I was like I said, I did project management techniques, was sort of the hook, and I spent a lot of time on this Q&A section for the success story. And then I talked to Spencer again in, I guess, like late December or early January, and we hooked up a podcast, which essentially, like, both of these things launched my site. So as I mentioned, I launched off someone else's site, and I think if you're gonna, it wasn't easy, right? So I spent hours on this post here, and then I had to actually have awesome results for the podcast. Both were huge, and it was, fantastic to be on his, site and platform in general. But if you're looking to go this route, it's definitely not it's a long-term commitment. At that point, I'd almost been looking at niche sites for a year, and I was super into it. So it's a repeatable process, and it's something that anyone can do, but you definitely have to have, the stuff I mentioned before. You have to be nice. You have to do what you say you're going to do. So, when I talked to Spencer about, being featured, I had to send him what he needed. I tried to give as many screenshots and like good information as I could to make the success story post valuable. And I think if you look back, actually, at least in this, I'll stop moving the mouse so you can actually see it, but the first post had 87 comments, and then the next one, right, the podcast, had 137. Now, I think I'm not 100% sure, like, if that means those were comments or if it was shared also, but the bottom line is people were into the idea. So at that point, I knew that things were pretty good. Now, one of the great parts of like being featured here was I now had the ability to network with other people in the niche, right? So I was featured on this much larger site. My site was nothing at the time, and Spencer's site was huge, and it's still huge. But what I had was like the ability to network, and I don't feel like I'm a strong networker in this sense of like going to a cocktail party and networking really well, trying to get better at that. But I never considered myself a networker, but it just sounded like in a corporate sense, going to like a happy hour didn't sound like a whole lot of fun. I learned how to do it better, but it didn't sound like a lot of fun. Now, what I could do was just be nice and present some sort of interesting, compelling pitch for these folks. And this was before I knew much about pitching. So basically, I knew that Spencer had several other success stories on his site. There were about 10 others. So I went out and I introduced myself, said I was going to be featured soon, that I was launching my own blog, and that I wanted them to guest post if they were interested. They could generally cover whatever they wanted, and I really just needed content to launch my site because I wanted to, have some content, but I knew that I couldn't, write enough or, enough good stuff. So I launched with about 3 of my own posts plus a few other guest posts from other people. So, sometimes they didn't actually want to guest post on my site. So for example, John Haver at Authority Website Income, he said, hey, it's great to meet you, but you know what? Like, I'm super busy. I'm only blogging on my own site. Don't really do the guest posting thing. So that was cool, but it turned out that he's a good contact to have. I was talking to him earlier this week. So we still have a good relationship. Eventually, I guest posted on his site like a year later. Matt Allen at Dumb Passive Income, a friend of mine. By the way, I've never met either one of them in person, but I know each of them and consider them friends. But Matt Allen at Dumb Passive Income, he took my offer up and he guest posted on my site and wrote about keyword research. And it worked well for him. It got the word out a little bit. It just, helped him get more traffic on his site. Even though I didn't have much, I was starting to pull in more from just launching my site and being on Spencer's podcast. As far as like other networking areas, I did just normal stuff of, blog commenting and guest posting, which if you've been to these before, that that's kind of what I do for niche sites. It's what I do for Niche Site Project. Turns out it's all the same set of skills. And I tried my best to write good content, stuff that people were interested in, and I tried to write it well. Now, I will say that when I look back at some of my early posts, I do see that, I was probably trying to use like words that were a little too big. It didn't really sound like I was, it didn't sound like me. So it was probably really derivative of like other writers and more like corporate oriented, because I could actually write like good emails in a corporate setting, but it was rough to, publish stuff at the beginning. It's scary because I definitely got emails where people said, hey, there's the misspelled word here, or you meant to write this, or just bad grammar or whatever. And really, in the beginning, it really bugs you. Now I just, I say thanks and, maybe I'll fix it, maybe I won't, but it doesn't matter. Like, so much doesn't matter. So at the beginning, it feels like everything's so important, but there's really not that much that's super important, especially when you're talking about, I guess, grammar and misspellings. It shouldn't like hold you back. You need to be able to like make your point. But, if you misspell a word or two, it's not the worst thing in the world. So right off the bat, I launched an ebook. So one key thing that I didn't mention before is I thought to myself, if I'm going to launch an internet marketing site, I want to have a product that I'm selling. I'm not going to start a blog as a hobby. So when I registered the domain, I knew that I was going to try and launch a product. I was going to try and launch an ebook, and I wanted to, have an, I guess like a revision or an iterative process to launch it. So I wanted to publish the first few posts, the guest post, and my first content, have that in place by the time the post went live at Spencer's site at Niche Pursuits, so that I could build my email list. And I also wanted to make sure that I had buyers, so I pre-sold. So I pre-sold this ebook as I was writing it, or as I was outlining it, so that I knew at the end of the day, I was going to sell at least 10 to 15 books, and I wasn't sure on the price, but I knew it was going to be cheaper early on. So basically, I did the whole pre-selling thing before I wrote anything and really dove in. So that's key to note. I mean, some people take the route of I guess basically like build their audience, then figure out what to sell, which is valid. But for me, I knew that I needed to have something specific that I was going to sell, and it was the ebook. I went through this iterative approach where I sold alpha versions, which was, a draft, more or less. It was edited. It was, professionally put together as far as, layout and all that. Then that was in, I think like early December is when that actually went out. The beta version was in January. So I sold a few more copies in January. And then the full release was in February, which was like a little bit after the podcast went live. So it all, from a scheduling standpoint, it all like fell into place as quickly as I could do it. I wrote like a 100-page book in about 6 weeks and fully edited for the alpha version. And basically what I would do between the versions, the beta and the full release, I would take input from the readers, the students, and I would improve it. Additionally, I added a few more, chapters as I had more time to write, say, information on private blog networks, and place that into the full release, and maybe it wasn't in the beta release yet. So, overall, I think I made about 10K that year from the ebook, which is cool. So, if you do the math, or if I do the math in my head, I think roughly the average cost was about $100. So I sold, about 100 versions of the book or so. So yeah, it worked out well, and it was, a great learning experience. And to write a book, to do anything of that scope, does sort of cement you into the, as an expert in the area. And people in the alpha and beta group are probably people So there's a guy named Chow, so you may see him in Facebook groups and stuff. He's doing pretty well these days. I just caught up with him, and he, I'm not sure I can disclose too much, but he's doing really, really well with his sites, and he still has a full-time job. And then Tran over at Cloud Living, he was actually in the alpha group, and I taught him a few things about the project management area, and scaling and SOPs and stuff. Of course, I'm sure he's learned from many other areas, as has Kent, but kind of cool to have people that you probably checked out this book in the early versions. So as I was going through the iterations of the book, the alpha, beta, and the full release, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be interesting to do a video course? Maybe, people want to learn in a different way instead of getting a 100-page book and not taking any action. I basically thought, hey, I'll put this in just a slide format, and I'm going to do I'm going to talk over the slides and give a few, screen flows and release it as a video course. So I did that in the summer of 2015, which was, sometime later. So at that point, things were shifting in the niche site world. Things were changing a little bit. And basically, the video course did fine, but there wasn't as much of an interest around niche sites at that specific moment. And then honestly, summertime is a rough time in internet marketing. I mean, people are on vacation. People are not like reading as much, and there's a little bit of people are just not sitting at the computer as much. So it was kind of a bad time to launch it, and I didn't do like a big, launch thing. I just, put it out there, made it available as a product on my site and in my email sequence, and it was fine, but I wasn't in love with it. And it was something that I threw together a little bit. It was essentially the same content, just in video form. So I wasn't really adding a huge amount of value unless a person just happens to be a video person, not a book person. So I did that, and it was interesting. Some of the mistakes that I've made, especially when I launched, is not being consistent. So through the years, I've gone through periods of, publishing a lot and then not publishing as much, and just generally not being consistent, expecting fast growth. So there are, I don't know, I haven't cracked the nut on that one either. I mean, growth is still slow. And, if you look at how slowly I'm growing my email list, for example, compared to other people, I see that that's probably one of my weakest things. And, I need to figure that out, but I'm not 100% sure what to do. So I'm still learning in that, but I think I expected like, hey, I'm going to be on Spencer's podcast, and that's just going to put me on the map, and, something huge is going to happen. Basically, nothing like that ever happens. So I think you have to be featured on like some giant outlet, and you have to be out there on other like platforms also, so people just see your name or site enough that it grows. Now, number 3 is expecting anything to go as planned. And this holds true now. I mean, you think everything is going to take a certain amount of time, and it usually takes longer. And you expect that, say, whenever you launch the video course, that the technology is going to cooperate. And when you integrate your technology on the learning platform you integrate the technology on the learning platform with your, say, email provider and PayPal, that it's going to work. And usually either it doesn't work or it doesn't work how you think it's going to, and it takes more time. And I definitely tried to do too much. So I was trying to start like too many niche sites and do internet marketing and launch a course and work a full-time job. It was just a little much. So I failed to make much progress in certain areas. And then last, trying to write, in quotes, smart. So I was trying to use like bigger words and sound like better than like other bloggers, I guess. And it just probably came off as pretentious or something. So the things that went well, the networking. So like I said, apparently via email, I can network pretty well. I have the credentials where, people will usually open my email, and I usually try and keep it brief because I know what kind of emails I like. I'm consistently trying to improve my writing and the content, and I think I am getting better. One thing that sort of screwed me up at the beginning was I was trying to do really well out of the gate, but now I know it's like the consistent effort actually pays off more. Content upgrades I've implemented since the very beginning. And if you go back and check out like Spencer's podcast from back in the day, like I put a content upgrade there, and that's primarily like the successes that I've had to grow my email list. It's just, honestly, I think it may be a matter of like getting my guest post with content upgrades on the right blog in front of the right audience. And I think that kind of stuff is going to be big. Webinars over the past 7 months have been awesome. That's why we're doing this one right now. And I rarely pitch. I've only sold on webinars like a couple times. And frankly, it's really more about just talking with you all here. And last, the things that went well, perseverance and persistence and flexibility. So I think in a lot of ways, just showing up and trying and like adapting. Like most people in most, I guess, situations, if you just keep showing up and you try to figure stuff out and you're willing to adjust, good things usually happen. So, it'll work for niche sites. A new student was asking me, hey, what are the chances of success if I stick with it and I follow the plan? Like if you stick with it, I mean, the chances of success are like pretty close to 100%. I mean, you just have to keep trying and keep at it. Now, of course, there's some element of like being stubborn, but if you keep at it, like things will work. So I see I've talked quite a lot. So right now I'm trying to publish something each week, although I took a little hiatus for a couple, I guess like a week or so. I'm still doing these sort of videos, so I think that counts as something each week. Weekly webinars, so I'm trying to, hold true to that. These are great. I enjoy doing it. Basically, this is what I did in my old day job. I ran meetings, I talked over slides, and occasionally I tried to make a joke. I'm doing YouTube videos, so I published a bunch in a period of time over the summer. And, I learned a lot doing it. And I'm going to keep doing it. I'm probably going to set aside a couple days once I get my act together here. And I'm going to do a bunch of videos and just sort of queue them up. And that's what I did over the summer period. And just generally, I'm iterating and improving on the 5-figure niche site course. I'll tell you, I have added 3 new units. You can't enroll right now, but you can in October again. But basically, there's 3 new units that bring the value proposition up for the course tremendously. So, you learn how to build a site, but you also will learn about email marketing with niche sites, selling a site, and then using other affiliate programs aside from the Amazon affiliate program. So I'm continually adding to it, and, people that have enrolled, they get access to the, the new stuff that I add as I improve it and write better than my peers. So I'm actually getting a lot better at writing, I think. Part of it is through just stronger editing, but I'm feeling good about it these days, at least better when I look at the other internet marketing blogs. Some of it is pretty rough, to be honest with you. So just practice over time, I've gotten better. I'm trying to publish better videos than my peers. And, I think hopefully, over time, this persistence and the, perseverance is going to pay off. I've been told, actually, when I watch other videos for people that specialize, or they act like they specialize in Amazon affiliate sites, they're teaching stuff that I taught in 2013 that just doesn't work anymore. And they're still putting it out. They're saying, yeah, this person's making 10K a month, and they're getting their links from, say, I don't know, blog comments or some sort of, social sharing stuff that they've set up, and it's fully automated, and that stuff just doesn't work. So I think my content is actually like pretty high level compared to the tactics that people are publishing, and they're not actually practitioners, so they don't know if it works anymore, but they're still selling it that way. I'm going to try to say no to almost everything. As I've reduced the number of things that I'm working on, everything got better, and I need to cut out more stuff. I'm doing well, but I could cut out even more. All right, back to the Q&A, and wow, I talked a lot. So I see some questions were out there. Feel free, by the way, in there. It'll be appreciated if it's about starting an internet marketing site, but I'll field all questions. So Nick says, is the book still available? No, it's not. It's old. There's a lot of out-of-date stuff in it. So no, not available anymore. I will mention that the book really served as the foundation for 5-figure niche site. Of course, I had to, take out 30% of it around gray hat link building. But the other part is I refined a lot of things along the way. So the 5-figure niche site course is really like the best parts of the book, and the parts that didn't matter, I removed those. And Jesus says, the list describes you except for the last two, and that was the things that weren't going well. So that mistakes that I made, not being consistent, expecting fast growth, expecting anything to go as planned. And I mean, any kind of like business venture you are going to do, like probably like those things all count. And Rick says that SEO patience is your problem. Yeah, and I mean, I hear a lot of people. They're like, oh, you know what? I just want to speed it up. I think I'm just going to buy like PBN links. There's these guys that are selling a service, and I think I'm going to do that. Most of my friends, honestly, most of my peers, they use PBNs, and it takes them basically as long to rank their sites as it does for like a new white hat site to rank. So you really don't get the speed benefit. Yeah, I know there's some outliers. Some people do different things, but I will caution you if you're looking at like case studies out there and it looks like a little too good to be true, nothing goes wrong. They're usually like either not telling you the stuff that went wrong, or they're leaving out some big details. So I'll leave it at that. So if it seems too good to be true, even if it's in a case study, it probably is. So Rick says, do I prefer teaching others how to build niche sites or building your own? You know what? I don't know if I can pick a specific one. I will say I don't like building new sites. There's a long like ramp up period to work through. And I also don't like having a lot of multiple sites. I have a couple sites that I work on and I like working on those. I really like being able to like implement, like I mentioned before, implement something, work out the kinks, and then tell people about it, versus there's a lot of people that just tell people what they're about to do and then it doesn't work, and it's kind of like a waste of everyone's time. As far as teaching others, I will say like one component that is good, right? So spending time on calls, answering questions like this, and doing like one-on-one coaching, that stuff's cool because I definitely have like certain insights that other people don't have, right? So if someone is a skilled niche site person, I have an area of like organization with systems, project management, and setting up a process that they don't have. So I could come in and help immediately. Even if they're making 10 or 20K a month, I could probably help them from a systems and organization standpoint. If someone, doesn't know anything about niche sites, I can of course help, set the stage on that portion too. So there's a piece of like working with individuals and coaching that I did with my full-time job. Like I said, I had about 10 or 15 people working for me. I had one-on-one meetings with each person every week. So we talked about stuff, we talked about life, and then we talked about, the work they were doing and prioritization. All right. So good question, Rick. There's something cool about having your own platform and, having an email list where, I don't know maybe we'll do a little informal survey here today with just the handful of people that we have on. But Jesus asks about his Amazon affiliate site. So I've started an Amazon affiliate site based on electronics. You've been trying to promote it on Facebook using Facebook ads and Twitter. What else do I recommend you do? Well, probably the best piece of advice I could give you is, let me ask you this, Jesus. Are you an expert in running ads? Are you like a paid traffic expert? I'm assuming not, because I'm just assuming you're not, but let me know. Thing is, I don't think that's going to work. My piece of advice is to not do that. That's what I recommend you do. And I would say focus on SEO traffic. If you haven't studied the keyword golden ratio, go study that. You'll find a video on my YouTube channel about the keyword golden ratio, and give that a shot, and I think you'll have more success. The problem with running Facebook ads, and I'll just focus on those because I know more about them. The problem with running Facebook ads to an Amazon affiliate site is your Amazon affiliate site is probably going to make on average about 5.5 to 6% of a commission rate. And if you're running ads on Facebook, it's really hard to make the math work out where you're going to try to, you're basically trying to arbitrage the system there, and you're probably not going to be able to make it work. Okay, so Jesus says, I'm a college student just trying something interesting that might make you a little money. Cool. That's awesome. It's a good thing to get into. So I would focus on the SEO side. I'm curious, is there a course or a person that taught you or that you're learning from about these Facebook ads to an affiliate site? Because I recently saw a person mention, hey, here's a tip that I have. They're a blogger, right? I'm not going to call them out personally, but they're an internet marketing blogger. They said, one of my tips on conversions or boosting income is to run Facebook ads that are retargeted to visitors to your site. And this is the part that is interesting. It's unclear, right? It's unclear if this person has tested it or if they're just talking about some theoretical thing that they're thinking about. So I recently published, or at least it'll come out soon, a conversion tips post. And I show you that I have a 12% conversion rate for this whole entire year. And I show you that the amount of traffic that I have, and you can see the number of clicks that are reported to Amazon. It's proof. I kind of know what I'm talking about, and I have the data to back it up. This guy basically said, hey, run Facebook ads to your affiliate post and it should work. He has no idea. I'm 90% sure he's not running Facebook ads. And I'm 90% sure he has no case study showing that it works. The other thing is, I'll get off my soapbox in a second. The other thing is, if people see a case study and I'm just going to make something up, but they see a case study about green buttons working better than red buttons, and they work 5% better. And then an internet marketer can take that study and then they start saying, hey, you need to be using this color button. It's shown that it works. There are so many factors involved that if you don't run the test yourself, you really don't know. And I mean, I try not to make those claims like that, but it's really dangerous to just listen to people that are giving you information when they haven't tested it themselves. So, Jesus, let me know who, if anyone, you're studying this, running ads to affiliate sites, because I don't think it works. I've never seen anyone show me that it worked for them. I know a lot of people that are doing well. They don't run Facebook ads, by the way. Okay, Rick says, the organization part drew me in since you're a major scatterbox returning to marketing recently. You started in 2004 and until a few years ago. Oh, sorry. You started it in 2004 until a few years ago, and now you're back and adjusting to the changes. Yeah, there's a lot of changes. And I mean, I'm seeing a shift right now too. I mean, any other questions, by the way, you can type them in now. Let's go on a little tangent based on what Rick mentioned. And then we'll probably end it up here. Thanks everyone for joining up. I know it was a small crowd. Hope you got something out of it. So kind of a shift that I'm envisioning now. So there's a couple things that happen. So when I got started in 2013, gray hat stuff was going on. Like in 2012, the Panda update rolled out. A lot of people got hit in internet marketing around that time. A lot of people got out. And what I see is, like most things, it's cyclical. So things were going great, and then 2012 hit. I know there were other like updates, but 2012 hit, Panda came out, and there was, you know, things changed. A lot of people got out of internet marketing. People got scared. People were doing a little bit better, and then they started building private blog networks and over-optimizing anchor text. And then I think my graph's going the wrong way, but over-optimizing anchor text, and then it tanked in, I think 2013 or must have been 2014. Penguin came out. Hopefully I'm not mixing up my animals here, but another shift happened. A lot of people got out of it. Private blog networks were beginning to get really popular, and then Google de-indexed a few big networks. Again, that happened in 2012 also, by the way. So Google de-indexed, and basically more people got out, and then the private blog network area sort of like lost favor, except for, you know, some people stuck with it. Some people didn't get hit because they were, you know, more conservative with their networks. And what I see right now is networks are becoming really popular. Affiliate sites are becoming popular again. There's a lot of people buying links on networks. And I envision probably before too long, I'll just say like within the next 2 years, I see another large network being de-indexed, and there'll be another big exodus where people are like, no PBNs, like we're not going to do it anymore. And, you know, a lot of people will get hit. A lot of people are going to leave affiliate marketing and SEO because of it. And, you know, that's a shift I see. There's some of the networks are just getting big and people get sloppy. And I mean, really, it would just take, I would imagine it would just take a couple like smart engineers to have a look at, you know, a network. They could buy into a network and then infiltrate it and take a lot of it down. They don't have to take everything down. If they just hit, you know, a portion of it, it can impact enough people that, you know, bloggers will make waves with it. So the other shift that I see is, I mean, I'm a white hat advocate at this point. I do blog commenting and guest posting. I see guest posting taking hold right now because of my course, me talking about it. I see like Authority Hacker. I see just other sites talking about guest posting and implementing, you know, what Brian Dean and Neil Patel were talking about, you know, 3 years ago. Do guest posting, do outreach. And at this point, people are scaling it and they're automating it. So they're sending out hundreds of emails a week. They're spamming the internet. It's failing to like get the same return as it used to. And I think it's going to be harder to get links that way. You're going to have to, you know, in the course, I basically say do high touch outreach. You need to spend more time networking. You need to, you know, not just blast out a ton of emails. Be nice, become friends with people, and then you'll be able to get those guest posts, and they'll probably be worth more because guess what? If you spend time building a relationship, that's a guest post that other people can't get. It's a little more rare. So I see that kind of shift, Rick, where we're at another cyclical point. Like I think there's going to be some kind of some kind of shift. Maybe a big network goes down because it's gotten so huge, or maybe those networks are just becoming less effective. I have heard that. Very large network I know of looks like it's not as effective. Like the PBNs are not very powerful. And I don't use PBNs myself. They work well if you can handle the risk, but for me right now, not my thing. Okay, and Jesus mentions you're learning as you go, and this is on the Facebook ad. You're learning as you go. You saw that Facebook had an ads program and you wanted to try it out. Cool. It's a great way to learn stuff. But yeah, the key thing is if you're running Facebook ads, you need to have a high commission payout or a high payout per action, or the math won't work. So luckily, it's really easy to figure this out on a spreadsheet, and you can get test data as you run the ads. Hopefully, that's what you're learning. But you know, the math is simple to figure out. It's harder to like optimize the ads. It's not a simple thing. There are certain niches that are better than others and cheaper to get clicks, but in general, it's pretty tough to make it work with an Amazon affiliate site. So cool. That looks like all the questions. My voice is really hurting me right now, so I'm going to call it a day. Thanks again, everyone who stuck on, especially for this long. We got Bernard, Nate, Rick, Del, Adam, and Jesus. Really appreciate you hopping on today and appreciate you sticking on for so long. I'll do another one next week in the next few weeks. I'm going to focus on content. So I'm going to do content over the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm going to talk about content. If you have questions, please email me. You could email me at Doug@NicheSiteProject. Just let me know whatever questions you have about content, whether it's like what to put in a review, if it's how long content should be, or if I'm mentioning things, you could just say, hey, yeah, I have a question about how long content should be. These people say it should be this long. Other people say it should be longer. What should I do? How to scale content, how to hire writers on Upwork, how to hire, other services, and that sort of thing. So content will be the next few weeks. I'm going to try to do it as a theme. So I'll do it in the webinars. I'll do blog posts about it, and I'll probably do a video or something too. So thanks for the comments, folks. Really appreciate it. See you, Rick. See you, Adam, and see you, Jesus. Thanks again, Sean, and guys and gals. If you want to get the shout out too, just share it in the Facebook group sometime in the future when this next one's coming out. So appreciate it. Have a great day. See you later.